Okay, so in this video, I'm going to teach you how to upload, download, and delete blobs from Walrus, right? And so let's just get into it. The first thing you want to do is actually download the Walrus TypeScript SDK. And so I'm just going to paste the command that downloads the Walrus TypeScript SDK and the Sui SDK. So I've pasted the command. The commands are like npm install, and then you have to specify Walrus first, and then Sui SDK, pretty much, and then just run that. And since I already have done that recently, it's already downloaded, right? So straight into development. The first thing we want to do is, of course, import. So first, we're going to import these two from the Sui TypeScript SDK. So it's Sui client. Yeah, from Sui, and then we also want to import the Walrus client. So it's Walrus client, yeah, client, and then we also want to import the retriable Walrus client error. We use this to pretty much check for errors when we're uploading the file. Finally, we want to import that ed25519 key pair scheme because we needed to import our key pair, right? So slash key pairs and the scheme. Now the first thing we want to do is actually define our client, so both the Sui client and the Walrus client. So it's as easy as Sui client first, because you're going to use the Sui client and the Walrus client. So you then specify your URL, so it's, and then network. In this case, we want to use mainnet, right? And then the next thing we want to do is Walrus client, right? So it's similar. Then you specify the network. So in this case, we're working with mainnet, so we keep it at mainnet. And then we also want to specify that we have our Sui client, which is Sui client, pretty much. So yeah, Sui client. Yeah, so that's it. That's our Sui client right there. That said, the next thing you want to do is import your key pair, right? So I'm just going to quickly import a key pair. This time around, we want to use the ed, this thing, and then from secret key, of course. And then I'm just going to go import the key pair right now. It's a dummy key pair, actually. So I pasted the key pair, it's dummy key pair. There's probably not going to be any reasonable amount of money there. You can still try if you want to. And so now let's upload a file since everything is in order. So to upload a file, I'm just going to declare a function. So it's asking function upload package.json, because we want to upload our package.json in this case, instead of doing anything too fancy. So this function, we want it to take in the path of the file, right, which is a string, and then we do not want to return anything per se. So I'm just going to open the function, and then the first thing we want to do is actually read the file, right? So we want to read the file, and to do that, I'm just going to use the read file sync function from the file system module. So I'm just going to import that first. So it's read file sync from fs for file system, and now we can now use this function to specify the path and the encoding of the file we want to work with. So it's path, and then the encoding is UTF-8, of course. Now we want to convert this to bytes, right? Everything you're going to be working with when you're working with Walrus is in bytes. So just going to specify the file bytes, right? And then use a new text encoder instance. Pretty much just going to complete this, and then now we've encoded it into 2 bytes. Now the next thing you want to do is now upload the file, right? So just going to declare an upload function, and then pretty much what this function would do is use the write blob function to upload the file, right? Yeah, so I'm just going to specify this after the arrow function. And well, it's this Walrus client actually. So we'll specify a Walrus client, the right blob, and then I'm just going to open this. So first we specify the blob, so it's file bytes, and then we'll specify if we want this file to be deletable, right? So set it to true because we want to eventually delete it in future, like in this tutorial. And so epochs, number of epochs you want to persist the data for, let's just do 3, right? I've forgotten how many days an epoch is, but I think it's 2 weeks, I can't remember, but pretty much. So just always remember that you have to check how many days an epoch is, and then this is actually deletable, yeah. And so the signer is I'll keep here. Cool. Now the next thing we want to do is now upload, right? And so we want to call this upload arrow function now, so that the file gets uploaded. And so it's the function, like this upload arrow function, actually returns 2 things: the blob ID and the blob object. So it's as easy as blob ID, blob object. Let me capitalize this, yeah. Await and then upload, right? And so let's say we wanted to catch an error, right? So we want to catch an error, so arrow function again, and in this case we want to pretty much reset and then return the upload, because let's actually say that what if it takes a lot of time or something like that. We want to always retry the upload every single time. And so it's as easy as first init statement if it's an error and the error is retriable Walrus client error, then we want to reset the client. So it's Walrus client that reset, and then we want to return the upload again. So return upload. So we want to run this function here, and so else we want to check the error. Yeah, this is actually capital. Cool. So now finally we can now print out or log the blob ID and blob object. So I'm just going to easily do this, and then first let's do the blob ID. So it's blob ID, and then the second one we want to do the blob object ID. So this is actually like the blob object, but we want to do the blob object ID. So it's .id. Yeah, right. And so finally let us call this function. Oh, this is blob object. Yeah, .id. Now finally let's call the function. So it's upload package JSON and specify the path. So it's package detection should be in this case here. So package.json, right? And now I can run this. And since I'm in Nigeria, it should take some time, but eventually it gets uploaded and we will see everything here. So as you can see here, now we have the blob ID and the blob object here. So the next thing we want to do is actually to download the file we just uploaded, right? So we want to get our package.json back, and so I'm just going to clear this entire thing. No, not everything. This entire thing here out. Close this. And so now what we want to do now is download our file that we just uploaded back. And it's very easy. You can do that in a few lines of code. The first thing is, let me declare a function that downloads the file. So it's download package.json, and we want this function to take in the blob ID. So it's blob ID, right? And we want to pass in this blob ID as a string. So, and then also the path that we want the file to be in. So I'm just going to set the path. Cool. Now the next thing we want to do is pretty much use the read blob function to get the file. So it's Walrus client.read blob, and then here we'll specify the blob ID. So blob ID. Now, so remember that what we are going to get from here is bytes, and we have to actually encode the data, right? So I'm just going to first decode it as a JSON. So it's JSON, new text decoder, yeah, pretty much that. And then now we can now use the write file sync in this case to write those bytes into a JSON file that is UCF8. So in this case, once you import write file sync, cool, and now we can now use it. So first, you want to specify the path, which this function actually takes in, then JSON, and then the encoding UTF-8. So yeah, I think that's the way to do it. Now, download the package.json, and then we could also like output it in this case if you want to. Cool. So of course you could always retry in case you have issues, but I'm just going to run this, and if everything is okay, we should have our package.json, right? So first let's call the function and then specify the blob ID. So our blob ID is which one? I think it's this one. And then also we want to specify the path. So let's call this download.json, and we want it to be in our root directory. Cool. So I'm just going to run this. So this isn't the object ID. I pasted the wrong one, and this is actually it. So I just fixed this, and I'm just going to run it again, and hopefully our file downloads this time. Right, so you can see here that our file has downloaded, and if you open this, you can see our download.json as we expected. Finally, let's delete a blob. So pretty much we want to delete the package.json, and then we will get a digest which you can now use to check if the delete was successful. That's it's as easy as, let's first declare a function. So it's async function delete blob, and this will take in the blob object ID, and it's a string. And then in this function we just want to use the, I think it's execute delete transaction blob, whatever, to pretty much delete the blob. So Walrus client execute delete blob transaction, and then this will take in first the blob object ID. So it's blob object ID, and then it's also taking the signer. So signer is our keep here. Cool. And so finally we want to pretty much log the digest. So I'm just going to log the digest here, and I'm just going to call this function with the blob object ID. So yeah, that should be it. And so let's run this. Just going to remove this, then let's run it. So as you can see here, we have the digest, right? I'm just going to copy this. So now I'm on CScan, I'm just going to search for that digest. And as you can see here, we can find the transaction. We can see that it was a delete blob transaction, and it was Walrus. So there's that, and now we can easily see everything that happened. So scrolling down, we can see the account that called it, which is like the account that we used, and we can see the blob here. So yeah,